The woods don't lie. That's what I always tell folks, because out here when the sun breaks through the pines and the air's got that cold, honest bite, you can feel it down in your bones you belong to the earth, not the other way around. City people, they think silence is scary. For me, it's home. No car alarms, no rules about what color your porch swing ought to be, no committees asking if your grass is an inch too long. Just wind and birds and that heavy quiet where every sound has meaning. You breathe deeper. You hear yourself think. That's what I wanted when I bought this patch of ridge in Placer County. My name's Jack Turner. 20 years Army, then a handful of jobs that paid enough but left me hollow. So when I signed that deed, when the county clerk stamped my name in blue ink across those 20 acres of rock and stubborn dirt, I promised myself, no more asking permission. No more feeling like a guest in my own life. Most mornings, my world is simple. Check the water line running from the spring, trim back the brush threatening the fence, maybe shoulder the Remington and walk the ridge for turkey. Not really for the meat, more like hunting for quiet, for that old peace that doesn't exist in towns. This morning, coffee in my chest, shotgun cradled easy in my arm, sky turning gold through the pines. I was halfway down the path thinking I should fix the shed roof before the next rain when I heard it. A sharp clang, then another, then the thud of steel meeting earth. Not firewood, not fence repair. No, this was too measured, too official. Like someone laying claim. I moved quiet through the trees, every step a warning to whatever, or whoever, was out there. When the clearing opened up, there they were, 3 men in orange vests and hard hats, tripods poking up like insect legs, tools scattered on my ground. One of them was hammering a silver stake straight into my earth, like he owned the place. Another had a scope leveled right at my cabin, like my home was some kind of bullseye, not even 70 yards away. For a second, I wondered if they were county workers, maybe a lost road crew. But then I saw it in the way they moved, like pioneers, not repairmen. They were measuring, mapping, planting, staking out new territory. And suddenly, all that old Army training kicked in. I gripped the shotgun, boots crunching, made sure they saw me coming. I didn't yell right away. Sometimes silence does the talking. But when I did, hey, it cut through the clearing. The tallest, bald with a clipboard, didn't even flinch. Looked at me like I was the trespasser. The youngest one shuffled like he'd been caught with a cigarette behind the school gym. The third guy kept his eyes on the equipment, pretending this was any old Tuesday. Clipboard guy finally raised his hand, calm and oily. Morning. We're here for the Ridge Valley Summit HOA survey, right-of-way easement planning. That word, easement, hit me like a punch. On whose authority? I barked, stepping between him and his expensive tripod. He tapped his tablet, smug. The HOA's authority. This stretch is within a disputed corridor zone. You should have been notified. I laughed. Ugly. You're 60 yards into private land, pal. My land. There's nothing disputed about it. He started to answer, but my voice had that old Army edge. I'm calling the sheriff. I thumbed the safety on the Remington, just so they remembered it was there. They started to look nervous. I pulled out my phone, dialed the sheriff's department, gave them GPS, deed info, everything. By the time I hung up, you could feel the air, tense, electric. Clipboard guy, Rick, just smirked like he'd done this before. This is going to escalate unnecessarily, he said. It already has, I shot back. You're standing on a felony. That's when the engines came, a couple of sheriff's SUVs, lights spinning, but no sirens. 2 deputies stepped out. One older, granite-jawed, the other younger, trying to look like he'd seen this before. I told them the story, handed over my deed, GPS map, stamped paperwork. Rick shoved his own tablet at them. Some HOA map with a big red boundary line bleeding across my hillside. My home was labeled Community Development Zone, but I'd seen enough fake maps to know when someone's trying to rewrite reality. The older deputy flipped through my documents, squinted at Rick. You know you're not supposed to work disputed land without notice to the owner? Rick hesitated, blamed the HOA board. The deputy didn't blink. Well, Ridge Valley can pay your legal fees. You set 1 foot back here without a court order. It's criminal trespass. The surveyors packed up, but Rick lingered just long enough to hiss at me. You're not going to win this, pal. They've already scheduled the install. You're in the way. I just stared at him, shotgun slung. I've stood in worse places. I'm still here. When they left, I kicked their stake loose, snapped it with my boot, tossed it into the brush. But all night I couldn't sleep. Rick's threat looped in my head wasn't a bluff. They'd already drawn up the paperwork, planned a project, bet on me being slow or blind. So I did what I do best. I went to work. My office is a corner of the cabin with 2 ancient monitors, coffee machine, enough hard drives to back up every scrap of evidence. I started a folder, Ridge Valley Encroachment Evidence Log. First stop, County GIS. My land, clear as day, separate from Ridge Valley. Then I found it, an overlay map labeled Proposed Expansion, a ghostly line curving right into my ridge. It had Hartman Consulting's name on it. That was the same name Rick had flashed on his tablet. I dug deeper. Hartman was more than just a contractor. He was the architect of this scam. His website bragged about integrated boundary redefining and strategies for pacifying dissent during HOA integration. People weren't owners to him. They were obstacles to be managed. Then came the twist, the YouTube video. Hartman himself, explaining how legacy parcels needed integration for the civic good. My ridge, my actual land, on display, with dotted lines marching toward my cabin. In the comments, HOA members cheered, talking about fiber lines and future improvements. I felt sick. They'd already sold the story to the public, as if my home was a speed bump on the road to progress. So I called Dan Miller, the one guy at the county I could trust. We'd served together back in the day. I needed to know, how far did this go? Dan dug up a stack of documents, Ridge Valley's pre-approval filings for utility corridors, with my parcel marked pending integration. Not stamped, not approved, just in the system like they were betting nobody'd notice. And then a forged letter, supposedly from me, saying I wanted to block community access and erect a fence. My signature copied from an old insurance form, right there on the page. That's when I realized this wasn't just a land grab. It was a character assassination, a campaign. They were painting me as the crazy vet on the hill, the problem. Smear campaigns on local blogs, anonymous posts about my hostile behavior, whispers to county supervisors. They even sent guys in the night, cutting my fence, staking new lines, trying to provoke me into doing something stupid. But if there's one thing 20 years of military and 2 deployments taught me, it's how to survive when the world turns sideways. I started fighting with paperwork, PowerPoint decks, screenshots, server traces, side-by-side images of my real signature and the forgery. Then I went public. Court filings, news tips, evidence folders sent to reporters and law professors. Suddenly, it wasn't just my story. It was the Ridge Valley case. The courthouse was packed. HOA members, reporters, even a law professor. Karen Whitfield, the HOA president, sat across from me, her face a mask of calm. But when the judge saw my evidence, the fake overlays, the YouTube pitch, the forged complaint, she didn't hesitate. Fines, criminal charges, a sheriff's raid on the HOA office. Karen got let out in cuffs. Hartman lost his license. The trust behind it all? Their office got raided too. State suits and handcuffs on the evening news. But here's the thing. Justice doesn't always feel like a Hollywood ending. Even with the headlines, the victory fell hollow. Karen stared at me from the back of the courtroom, eyes sharp as knives, and I knew she was thinking about the next move. A few nights later, a black SUV rolled by my gate. Lights off, engine purring. It didn't stop, just watched. A warning. A promise that the fight wasn't over. Dan and I sat by the fire pit after it was all said and done, dogs at our feet, bourbon in our hands. You did it, he said, exposed the scam, made history. I just stared out at the ridge, thinking about all the others like me. Folks who'd wake up one day and find their home redlined on some consultant's map. Because here's what I learned. The real enemy isn't a single HOA or a greedy consultant or even a shadowy trust. It's that quiet erosion, paperwork, rumors, midnight trespassers, meant to make you give up before the real fight even starts. Out here, a man who knows his land, knows every tree, every stone, can't be erased by a PDF or a fake complaint. That's the lesson. The law can help, sometimes. But in the end, justice comes down to standing your ground, keeping receipts, and refusing to let fear turn you into a ghost in your own home. So, when people ask me if it was worth it, if the sleepless nights, the court battles, the cameras and guns and stares from town were worth it, I tell them this. You only lose what you're willing to let go. Out here on this ridge, the line held. Now let me ask you, how far would you go to defend what's yours? Where do you draw your line between fighting back and letting it go? Drop your thoughts below. Ever tangled with a bully, a bureaucracy, or an HOA hell-bent on taking more than they're owed? I want to hear your story, because the woods, they don't lie, but people sure do.